Nobody expected her to last the week, not the instructors, not the recruits, and not even the base commander watching from his office window. Private First Class Elena Cruz stepped off the transport truck with nothing but a duffel bag and a look of quiet focus. The morning sun hit the back of her neck as she lined up with the others, her boots too clean, her uniform too pressed. To the other recruits, she looked like a student who got lost on the way to a college campus. Whispers started immediately. Another quota filler. Bet you can't even do 10 push-ups. She's here for show. But Elena didn't respond. She just stood straight, eyes forward, saying nothing. Then came Sergeant Maddox. Barrel-chested, loud, and built like a bulldozer. He stomped down the line of fresh recruits, barking in every face until he landed in front of her. "You lost, sweetheart," he growled. "No, Sergeant," she replied without blinking. "Wrong. You're in the wrong place. This ain't yoga class." Snickers rippled down the line. Maddox leaned closer. "You hear me?" "Yes, Sergeant." But there was no fear in her voice. No sarcasm either. Just calm. He narrowed his eyes, then moved on. Day 1 was brutal. Recruits dropped out by noon. The sun was relentless. The instructors louder. And Elena? She moved quietly through it all. Not the fastest. Not the strongest. But she didn't quit. At the climbing wall, she slipped halfway up. Her foot missed a peg, and she hit the dirt hard. Laughter followed. One of the recruits, Jace, didn't even try to hide it. "Dead weight," he muttered loud enough for others to hear. The nickname stuck. Dead weight. That night, as others joked in the mess hall, Elena sat alone, studying the training manual. She traced every drill, every requirement, every angle of the obstacle course. She wasn't here to impress anyone. She was here to finish. The next morning started with combat drills. Pair up, defend, counter, grapple. Jace was waiting, grinning. "Let's dance, deadweight." She didn't respond. They locked up. He lunged, pushing her off balance. The rules said restraint. He went beyond that. Twisting, shoving, trying to embarrass her. But Elena absorbed it. Waited. Watched. Then it happened. She slipped out of his grip, pivoted, and flipped him with perfect leverage. Not brute force, technique. He hit the mat hard. The group went silent. Jace scrambled up, red-faced. But before he could say a word, Maddox stepped in. "Oh, now you think you're tough." He grabbed her wrist, tight. She didn't panic. In one smooth motion, Elena twisted her arm free, stepped in, and used his weight against him. His grip broke instantly. He didn't fall, but he stumbled. The silence was deeper this time. No one laughed. No one spoke. Even Maddox looked at her differently. Not angry. Not amused. Just curious. Elena stepped back into formation like nothing happened. Whatever they thought of her yesterday, that changed today. They started watching her differently after that. Not with respect, at least not yet, but with a mixture of confusion, suspicion, and something close to fear. Nobody expected her to flip a guy twice her size, let alone shake off Sergeant Maddox like he was just another obstacle. Jace didn't say a word the next morning, but others filled the silence with something worse. "She's lucky. It was a fluke. She probably trained in some karate class for kids." They still didn't get it. Elena didn't argue. She didn't explain. She just ran her drills, climbed the rope, lifted her weight, worked until her hands were raw and her boots wore thin. But the whispers kept coming. This time, they were quieter, meaner. "She's trying too hard. Wants to be a hero. Watch, she'll break soon." On day 6, everything boiled over. It was during a full-unit obstacle course. Mud pits, rope swings, wall climbs, timed to the second, watched by every instructor on base. The recruits were grouped in pairs. Guess who got stuck with Elena? Jace. He smirked. She didn't react. They started the course. First obstacle, the crawl under barbed wire. Elena beat him through it. Next, tie or run. She matched him step for step. Then came the wall. 8 feet high. No rope. Just jump, grab, climb. Jace went first, cleared it. Turned to watch her. She ran. Jumped. Missed the grip. Fell. Dead weight, he said, just loud enough. Elena stood up. Shook off the dirt. Jumped again. Missed. Snickers from the sidelines. Instructors watching. Jace crossed his arms. Maybe sit this one out. She took 3 steps back. Ran full speed. Jumped higher. Hands grabbed the edge. She pulled with everything she had. Muscles burning. Fingers slipping. But she didn't let go. She climbed over, hit the ground, and kept running. The finish line wasn't far. Jace sprinted ahead, determined to win. Elena followed, steady. But the course wasn't done. One last challenge, the weighted drag. A 100-pound dummy and a 50-foot pull. Jace started fast. Too fast. His grip slipped halfway. He cursed. Tried again. Elena reached her dummy. Squatted. Pulled. Slow at first. Then smoother. More control. Inch by inch, she passed him. The entire unit stared. By the time she crossed the line, she was ahead. Breathing hard. Mud-covered. Silent. Jace didn't say anything. No one did. Until Maddox stepped forward. He looked at the scoreboard. Then at Elena. Then he turned to the rest. "You all see that?" he asked, voice sharp. "That's what effort looks like. That's what grit looks like." The recruits stood stiff. She didn't talk big. Didn't show off. Didn't cry. She just finished. And she beat half of you doing it. Maddox turned to her. "Still think you're in the wrong place, Cruz?" "No, Sergeant." He nodded once. Walked off. The others didn't laugh that day. They watched her walk past, covered in sweat and dirt, face calm, eyes forward. Something had changed. She wasn't just a quiet girl anymore. She was someone they couldn't ignore. The joke stopped, but the tension didn't. By week 2, Elena Cruz had become a quiet storm in the middle of the unit. She didn't brag, didn't argue, didn't join the lunch table conversations. But everyone knew her name now. They whispered it differently. Not as a joke, but as a warning. Still, some weren't convinced. Not everyone respected quiet strength. Some thought it was luck. Some thought it was fake. And one recruit still wanted to prove her wrong. Jace. He couldn't stand the way people looked at her now. Couldn't stand that Maddox had praised her publicly. That same night he told his bunkmate, "She's not tough. She's just slippery. That's all. She won't last when things get real." The next day was close combat day. Drills were rotated fast. Grapples, takedowns, pressure points, and escape techniques. Maddox barked instructions as pairs moved through the muddy training field. Boots slid, elbows flew, grunts filled the air. When he called for a sparring round, real time, no help, Elena already knew what was coming. Cruz. Jace. Center. They stepped forward. Everyone watched. Maddox didn't smile. He just said, "Show me who's got it." Jace cracked his knuckles. "Finally," he muttered. He circled her like a predator. Elena stayed still, balanced. He lunged. She blocked. Sidestepped. Light on her feet. Jace swung again, wild, frustrated. She slipped under his arm and backed off. Gasps rippled. He charged, trying to wrap her in a hold. This time he got her. Arms locked around her from behind. He smiled. "You're done." But Elena didn't struggle. She moved with intention, twisting her body, dropping her weight, turning into his grip. Then it happened. She shattered his hold. 1 second, he was in control. The next, he was flat on his back. A sharp thud echoed through the field. Silence followed. Elena stood over him, calm as ever. She didn't smile, didn't gloat, just waited. Maddox stepped forward. He didn't yell, didn't clap, just looked at Jace, then at the rest of the recruits. "You're not beaten by size," he said. "You're beaten by skill, discipline, control." He turned to Elena. "Where'd you learn that, Cruz?" She answered softly. My mother was a firefighter. My uncle taught me close quarters defense before I turned 16. I practiced every week. Maddox nodded. Figures. Jace stood slowly. His pride bruised more than his body. He didn't look Elena in the eye. The drills ended, but the whispers didn't. Only now, they were different. She's trained. She's tactical. She's the real deal. By the time they lined up for evening roll call, something had changed in the way the unit stood around her. They didn't laugh anymore. They didn't doubt. They just watched, quiet, curious, and for the first time, maybe even a little inspired. The respect she earned didn't come from her words. It came from silence, the kind that made people curious. After the takedown, no one dared challenge her. Even Jace kept his distance. Not because he feared her strength, but because he couldn't understand how he lost so fast. He had size, speed, experience, and still, she put him on the ground like it was nothing. But Elena wasn't there to be impressive. She was there to finish what she started. The next morning began with tactical simulations, urban operations, building clearances, hostage rescue drills. Recruits were broken into fire teams, each assigned a scenario and a role. Maddox called out the assignments. Elena was placed with 3 recruits who hadn't said a word to her since day 1. Cruz, your team lead, Maddox barked. That got their attention. Jace muttered under his breath. Why her? The others hesitated. One of them, Carter, stepped forward. She doesn't talk. How's she supposed to lead? Maddox didn't explain. Just raised an eyebrow. Because I said so. They didn't argue again. The team huddled beside the practice compound. Cardboard walls. Dim lights. Loudspeakers mimicking gunfire and chaos. 2 hostiles, Elena said quietly. 1 friendly trapped inside. We go silent, no flash, breach on signal. Carter and Jace take the right flank. Rivera with me left. They stared. She didn't wait. We move in 60. Ready or not. They followed. The simulation began. Maddox and the other instructors watched from above, eyes on every angle. Inside, Elena led with steady steps, checking corners, signaling without speaking. The team moved like they'd trained for weeks under her command. At the breach point, she paused, raised 2 fingers, counted down. 3, 2, 1. They hit the door. Shots rang out from speakers. Lights flashed red. Elena moved fast. Neutralized the targets with foam rounds. Reached the hostage in under 30 seconds. They cleared the compound in record time. When they exited, Maddox checked his stopwatch. Raised his eyebrows. Fastest time today. Jace opened his mouth, then closed it again. The others didn't speak. They didn't need to. That night in the barracks, things were quieter. No mocking. No whispered insults. Carter approached her. Awkward. Hesitant. Hey, you always that good at planning under pressure? Elena looked up from her notebook. I've had practice. Where? She shrugged. My sister used to run disaster response simulations. I was the test subject. Carter blinked. Seriously? She nodded. Got flooded out of our apartment once. Had to figure out how to get 3 people and a dog onto the roof before help came. Planning kinda stuck with me. He laughed once. Not mockingly. That explains it. She went back to her notes. In the corner, Maddox watched from the hallway, arms crossed. He didn't smile, but something in his eyes said he finally saw what he hadn't before. Not just talent. Not just control, leadership. The kind that wasn't loud. The kind that didn't need a spotlight. The kind that earned loyalty the hard way, one silent victory at a time. By week 3, Elena Cruz had become the name they whispered when things got hard. Recruits who used to mock her now studied how she moved, how she planned, how she somehow kept calm while everyone else cracked under pressure. She didn't talk much, but when she did, people listened. Because she never wasted a word. During marksmanship week, She didn't just hit her targets. She broke a range record held for 3 years. From standing, kneeling, prone, timed, and under stress. She never missed more than 2 shots. Even Maddox paused when he saw her scorecard. "Who taught you to shoot like that?" he asked. "My cousin," she said. "Military police. He used to take me to the range every weekend." He nodded. "Well, tell him he trained a machine." Elena didn't react. Just reloaded and moved to the next lane. That same day, Maddox made an announcement. Final field evaluation in 3 days. Squad-based. Full scenario. You'll be graded on tactics, communication, survival, and mission outcome. Failure is not an option. The pressure was real. One mistake could mean being sent back or cut completely. That night, Carter, Jace, and Rivera gathered around Elena's bunk. "No jokes. No sarcasm. Help us plan," Carter said. "You've got the best mind for this stuff." She looked at them. Didn't answer right away. Jace added, "Look, I was wrong about you. A lot of us were. But we want to win this. And if anyone can lead us through it, it's you." Elena gave a small nod. "Okay. But we don't just plan to pass. We plan to dominate." They stayed up late. She mapped out possible terrain layouts, enemy movement patterns, supply points, extraction zones. Her notes were more detailed than anything in the training manual. They trained the next 2 days like it was the real thing. Not just drills, rehearsals. Every movement, every formation, every emergency plan. And then the day came. At dawn, squads were dropped into a simulated combat zone, forests, hills, and fake enemy units scattered throughout. Elena's squad hit the ground running. They moved low, silent, controlled. Every signal was clear. Every decision quick and precise. Halfway through the mission, they were ambushed. Another squad had been delayed and ran into their path, triggering the simulation enemies early. Chaos erupted. Most teams would have panicked, scrambled, blamed each other. Elena didn't raise her voice. She didn't freeze. "Flank left," she said. "Carter, smoke out the ridge. Jace, cover fire on my mark." They moved exactly as ordered. Within 3 minutes, the area was clear. No injuries. No wasted ammo. No hesitation. They secured the objective. Extracted the hostage. Called an evac and defended the site until pickup. When the exercise ended, their instructor pulled Maddox aside. "That squad ran like clockwork," he said. "Who's leading them?" Maddox didn't even look up. "Cruz." The instructor raised an eyebrow. "Seriously?" Maddox nodded. "Told you. Quiet ones are the ones to watch." Later that evening, the scores were posted. Elena's team ranked first. Not just for speed, but for efficiency, decision-making, and teamwork. Recruits from other squads approached her after lights out. "Where'd you learn to think like that?" one asked. "My family never waited for someone else to show up," she said. "If something had to be done, we did it." They didn't respond. They just nodded, understanding, now, what Maddox had seen weeks ago. Elena wasn't just another recruit. She was a force built in silence, sharpened by struggle. And finally, everyone knew it. They didn't talk over her anymore. By the start of week 4, Elena Cruz had become something few recruits ever became during training. Respected without demanding it. She didn't wear her confidence on her chest. She didn't shout to be heard. She led the same way she fought, quiet, controlled, and unshakable. Even Maddox stopped calling her by her last name. Now it was just Cruz. She didn't let it go to her head. She still woke before the alarm. Still cleaned her rifle when no one else was watching. Still ran drills like she was at the bottom of the pack. But people noticed. One night, after lights out, Rivera whispered from the next bunk over, "Why don't you ever rub it in? You've earned it." Elena didn't even look up from her notebook. "Because I'm not here to prove anyone wrong. I'm here to prove myself right." The next day's assignment was mental resilience testing. It wasn't about speed or strength. It was about how long you could last under pressure. Physical exhaustion, deprivation, psychological stress. Some recruits laughed when they heard what it involved, until they reached the field site. The first hour was nothing but heavy packs and uphill marching. The second, navigation through thick brush with no compass. By hour 3, they were low on water and dragging their feet. Maddox and the instructors watched from the perimeter, silent. Most recruits cracked during the 4th hour, when the simulation added sound distractions and conflicting instructions. Half the unit moved in circles. Some panicked. A few even snapped at each other. But not Elena. She stayed steady, kept her group on track. When orders conflicted, she paused, analyzed, and chose the path that made the most sense. She didn't guess. She didn't gamble. And she was right every time. After 7 hours, her group was the only one to complete the course without needing to be pulled out. As they sat in the dirt, breathing hard, Carter looked over at her. "You ever quit anything?" he asked, half joking. Elena looked ahead. "Once," she said. Silence. Jace leaned in. "What was it?" She hesitated. "I quit trying to be who everyone else wanted me to be." No one laughed. Not even Jace. That night, Maddox called her into his office. She stepped in, standing at attention. "At ease," he said. "Sit." She sat. He didn't shout this time. Didn't test her. Just looked at her like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "You know, Cruz, I've seen a lot of recruits burn out trying to impress everyone around them." She nodded slightly. "I thought you were one of them at first," he admitted. "Thought you'd fold under pressure. I was wrong." He leaned forward. "You don't lead with noise. You lead with consistency. That's rarer than talent." She stayed silent. Then he asked something she didn't expect. "What's your plan after this?" "Advanced field training," she answered. "Then Ranger prep." Maddox raised an eyebrow. "Ambitious." She didn't blink. "I didn't come here to stay comfortable." He smiled for the first time. "Good. Because comfort's the first thing that dies out there." She stood. "Anything else, Sergeant?" He shook his head. "No. You're dismissed." As she walked out, other recruits watched her pass. Not because she was loud. Not because she demanded attention. But because somehow, in a place designed to break people down, she had quietly built herself up. And now, she wasn't just surviving. She was setting the standard. The final week of training was no joke. By this point, everyone knew Elena Cruz was different. The way she moved, the way she carried herself, it wasn't just about physical strength anymore. It was something deeper, something forged in silence, sweat, and unbreakable will. The day began with an endurance march. 40 miles over rough terrain, heavy packs, and limited rest. Most recruits struggled to keep pace. Many dropped out before the halfway point. Elena led her squad without complaint. Every step was deliberate, every breath measured. She set a pace that was fast enough to push them, but slow enough to keep them moving. During one of the steepest climbs, Jay stumbled. His ankle twisted badly, and he crumpled to the ground. "Help me," he whispered, pain clear in his voice. Without hesitation, Elena was there. She examined his ankle with steady hands. "We're not leaving you," she said. The squad paused while she fashioned a makeshift splint from branches and bandages. "That's going to have to hold," she told him. Jace looked at her, stunned. The girl he once mocked was now the one keeping him alive. They resumed the march, slower but together. Later, they reached a river crossing. The water was cold and swift, and the only bridge had been destroyed in the simulation. Elena scanned the surroundings. She spotted fallen logs nearby. "We build a makeshift bridge," she said calmly. Some recruits grumbled, but she ignored them. Using teamwork, they pulled logs into place, tying them with strips of cloth torn from shirts. One by one, they crossed, steady but cautious. When the last person was over, they continued. That night, the squad was exhausted but undefeated. The final test was a night raid. The mission: infiltrate enemy lines, retrieve intelligence, and extract without detection. Elena studied the maps carefully, double-checking every detail. Her team gathered around, hanging on every word. "Silence is our ally," she said. "No flashlights, no radios, no unnecessary noise. Follow my lead." The raid began under a moonless sky. Shadows moved like ghosts through the trees. Elena's heart pounded, but her steps never faltered. They avoided patrols, took cover behind rocks and bushes, and moved with precision. At one point, a guard passed within inches of Carter. He froze. Elena grabbed his arm, whispered, "Breathe. Stay still." The guard moved on. Finally, they reached the objective, a small tent with a locked case inside. Elena pulled out lockpicks she'd secretly practiced with during downtime. The lock clicked open. Inside, documents glowed faintly under moonlight. They grabbed what they needed and began the exfiltration. Just as they neared the extraction point, alarms blared. Enemy reinforcements were inbound. "Run," Elena commanded. Bullets zipped past as they sprinted through the trees. Jace, still favoring his injured ankle, stumbled again. Elena stopped, pulling him up without hesitation. They pushed through, adrenaline fueling every step. Minutes felt like hours, but finally, they reached the extraction zone. Helicopter lights pierced the darkness. They signaled for pickup. As the helicopter lifted them away, the unit breathed a collective sigh of relief. Back at base, Maddox met them. He looked at each recruit in turn. Then his gaze. The final day of training arrived like a storm, heavy, intense, and unforgiving. Elena stood at attention with the rest of her unit, the sun barely rising over the horizon. The air smelled of sweat, dirt, and anticipation. This was it, the last test. The culmination of weeks spent proving herself, fighting against doubt, and breaking every expectation. The scenario was a full-scale mock operation. Infiltrate enemy lines, secure a high-value target, and extract without detection. Every recruit had been briefed, but no one really knew what to expect until the horn blew. Cruz's squad moved out swiftly. Their earlier drills had taught them to rely on each other, to trust silently, and to move as one. The terrain was rough, dense woods, steep hills, and hidden pitfalls. Every step required focus. Every breath was calculated. Halfway through, they encountered their first challenge, an enemy patrol. It was a trap designed to flush them out. Jace froze. For a second, hesitation cracked his usually confident exterior. Elena caught it. Without a word, she slid her hand over his arm, a small signal to move. 2:00, she whispered, barely audible. Carter and Rivera shifted silently to flank, while Elena crept forward to distract. She moved like a shadow, keeping low and steady. A quick signal, a suppressed shot, and the patrol was down before they even knew what hit them. The squad regrouped, adrenaline high, but steady. Then came the hostage. They found her locked in a guarded shack at the edge of the forest. The enemy was alert, expecting reinforcements. Time was running out. Elena's mind raced. There was only one way. "Carter, set the diversion on my mark," she ordered. Smoke grenades hissed and flared. Chaos erupted as the guards rushed toward the distraction. Elena slipped inside. The hostage was frightened but unharmed. "Stay calm," Elena said softly. "We're getting you out." Extraction was complicated. The escape route was under heavy simulated fire. But Elena's team moved without hesitation. Jace, still shaken, kept close. Elena's earlier support had changed something between them. Respect, maybe. Trust, definitely. They reached the extraction point just as the horn sounded. The operation complete. Exhausted, muddy, but victorious, they collapsed on the ground. Maddox approached, his usual stern face softening. "You did good, Cruz." "Better than good." The unit gathered around. No more whispers, no more doubts. Elena looked around. Faces once filled with skepticism now held admiration. Jace stepped forward. "Guess I owe you an apology," he said quietly. She smiled, a rare, genuine smile. "Just finished the mission," she replied. The ceremony that followed was quiet but meaningful. Elena stood tall as the commander called her name. She wasn't just another recruit anymore. She was a soldier, one who had been tossed aside, doubted, and underestimated. And yet, in moments of challenge, she shattered expectations. The sergeant's grip wasn't strong enough to hold her back. Her strength came from inside. And now, standing among her peers, Elena Cruz knew this was just the beginning.